Hi, so I will show how to use the Core Read File Fast plugin in this video. So I will start Time Studio. So Time Studio is currently in the version 3.22. And I will use some example data that we have somewhere else here. So these are text files that has been exported from Tobii ProLab. So it's gaze data and pupil data in there. And to read these files, you can use two plugins. We can start with Core Read File, which will open up the read file settings. And there is now a setting called Tobii ProLab, which is set up so that it will read the data and it will create variables for the gaze X coordinates, the Y coordinates, and the pupil data. Also, we got the time and the event timestamps. And if I run this, just take one sample, it will read the data and start converting the events into proper event names. And as you can tell, this is taking quite some time. So we have to wait for it to be ready again. And if you have a lot of files, this can be a bit annoying that you have to wait so long. And the reason is that this plugin is very flexible and has to adjust to all possible file formats. And it's supposed to recognize the most common problems with data files. So it actually does a lot of things behind the scenes. The problem is that it takes a long time, and you maybe already know what kind of data is in this text file. So we want to use this knowledge of the structure of the file to make something that is a bit faster. So it took 87 seconds for Core Read File to read this. And if we instead use Core Read File Fast, and use a similar setting, it will read the same file in 1.83 seconds, which seems very reasonable. So why do we have these two different file readers? Well, Core Read File Fast is a bit trickier to set up, and it can't take all kinds of text files. And I will show you how I created this setting that reads the Tobii ProLab data, because when you export your ProLab file, it might not look exactly the same in your data files, and then Core Read File Fast will fail. So then you have to set up this plugin once more, but with Core Read File, it doesn't matter how your data file is organized. Okay, so to show this, I will now add an empty Core Read File Fast. It looks like this. It has the default settings. It will try to find the data files which ends with any of these file extensions, and we've got TSV in our file names, so it will recognize that this is a data file. We'll store the data in the eye tracking subfield. And this is just okay. So I recommend that you check this one. So sometimes when you export the data, the decimal sign is not a dot, but a comma, which is a huge difference from MATLAB. But if you check this one, it should work anyway. And if we just save this setting, let's call it test. If we now run this one, it will output the column names in this particular text file. So the first column in this text file is the recording timestamp. The second is the project name, and so on. And here we've got the gaze data, for example, in column 36 and 37. However, depending on your settings when you export this text file, these column index numbers might not be the same. So you might export the data with AOI data in there, and then you will have additional columns that will sort of shift all the columns. And with core read file, you have to specify what is the column number. Okay, so I will open up the plugin setting again. And you can see that we have some column names, or we want to create variables for the time, the pupil size, for the X gaze data and the Y gaze data. And then we have to match these columns with these variable names. So the first one is time. And we can see that that is column 1. So then we should number 1 here. And then we want to have the pupil column. And with core read file fast, you can't make averages. So you have to choose one eye. So if we take the left pupil, the column number is 48. And then we have the X gaze data, which is here in column 36. And the Y column is here, column 37. And then we have the events, which can actually be merged. So 34 and 35 should go into the event column. And if I run that, we can see that it takes 1.8 seconds. It also write out all the column names and the first values in this data to see whether it looks plausible or not. And also the event names. So you can check if you want that it looks okay. Another way to check whether it looks okay is to add a plugin that I made, which is called Core Script, where you can script things. And I made one short script which outputs 3 figures, one with X data. This looks okay. We zoom into this one, we can see that we've got something that resembles X coordinates gaze data. And if we do the same with Z or Y data, it looks also okay. So the X and Y is good, but the pupil is empty. Why? Well, the problem is that the data, if we just look at the raw data, we can see that the pupil size is on every third row, and then we have not in numbers. And then you can't draw a line when you have no lines or no coordinates to connect, because you have to connect this one with not a number. And that is not because of something TimeStudio does, it's because of something that ProLab does. And to remedy that, we would have to use, we would have to interpolate. Then we have the plugin Core Interpolate Gaps, where you can specify what you want to interpolate. So for example, eye tracking pupil. We can use linear interpolation. We don't want anything but max sample gap, 2 samples. And I've already prepared one that looks like this. It's called pupil 3 samples. And if I use this, it will interpolate the data. And now that I plot it, you can see that the pupil size is now okay. And yeah, we've got something that looks like pupil data with some artifacts in there as usual. Okay, so if you do this, you can use Core Read File Fast, and hopefully it will speed up your analysis. Thanks for now.